There's a sensation that creeps in during moments you can't explain, like you've taken a wrong turn in life, but you can't pinpoint where. It's not regret. It's deeper. It's a haunting awareness that somewhere, somehow, things could have been radically different. Not just a better job or a different city, but an entirely separate existence. One where everything you're living now is flipped, rearranged, or completely rewritten. That feeling isn't fiction anymore. It's at the edge of science. This is not about fantasy or philosophical indulgence. This is about a concept so vast it's rewriting the boundaries of physics, cosmology, and consciousness itself. The multiverse, a possibility so staggering that it suggests our universe, with all its galaxies, laws of physics, and complex histories, might be nothing more than a single drop in an infinite ocean of realities. This idea has captivated theoretical physicists for decades. It's not some abstract brain game. It's the product of real equations, tested logic, and the lingering residue of unexplained cosmic patterns. If true, it doesn't just change our understanding of space or time. It challenges the very idea of identity, consequence, and the self. So here's the unnerving proposition. You may not be the only you out there. Every decision you never made, every door you never opened, every version of yourself you never lived, might be playing out right now in real, fully formed universes operating parallel to this one. Universes that started from the same spark as ours, but twisted off in slightly or dramatically different directions. Now, this raises disturbing and fascinating questions. Are all outcomes happening at once? Could your consciousness be tied to one version of reality while others unfold without your awareness? If everything is happening somewhere, what's the true value of choice? In this video, we're going far beyond the surface. You're not just hearing theories, you're being taken into the mind of modern physics, where respected scientists are grappling with ideas that sound stranger than fiction, but are grounded in the logic of quantum mechanics, cosmic inflation, and string theory. We'll start with the foundations, breaking down what the multiverse actually means and how it has crept from speculative philosophy into serious scientific discourse. Then we'll explore the possibility that another version of you might already exist and be living out the consequences of choices you never made. We'll trace the ongoing search for evidence and the existential weight that comes with this revelation. By the time we reach the end, you won't look at your life, your choices, or your universe the same way again. Now let's begin where most scientific revolutions start, with a question that threatens to unravel everything we think we know. What exactly is the multiverse? The multiverse is not a single theory. It is a collection of theories, a cluster of interpretations that challenge the sacred idea that our universe is the one and only. To understand its foundation, you need to confront a basic assumption most people never question. That the cosmos, as we observe it, is all there is. That the Big Bang created everything that ever was and ever will be. But the more we examine the mathematics of reality, the less that assumption holds up. Start with quantum mechanics, the bizarre, often unintuitive science that governs the smallest particles in the universe. At this subatomic level, particles behave in ways that defy logic. They can exist in multiple states at once. They can be connected across vast distances instantaneously. They don't have a definite position until someone observes them. But the most mind-breaking of all is the idea that every possible outcome of a quantum event actually happens. Not here, not in this universe, but in others. This is the basis of the many worlds interpretation, one of the most popular and unsettling frameworks supporting the idea of a multiverse. It proposes that every time a quantum event occurs, every time a particle makes a choice between two or more possibilities, reality splits. One version follows each outcome. When you zoom out to the level of humans, choices, and consequences, the implication is staggering. Every time you make a decision, no matter how trivial, a new universe may branch off where another version of you made a different choice. And that's only one lens through which the multiverse emerges. The second comes from cosmology, the science of the universe's birth and expansion. When scientists examined the cosmic microwave background, the residual radiation from the Big Bang, they found something peculiar. The universe didn't just expand. It inflated exponentially, faster than the speed of light. This rapid inflation suggests that our universe might be just one bubble in a vast cosmic foam, with other bubbles forming and inflating elsewhere. Each of these bubbles could contain its own universe with different laws of physics, different particles, and different outcomes. This is called the inflationary multiverse. So now we have two powerful sources, quantum mechanics and cosmic inflation, both pointing to the possibility of multiple universes. But there's more. String theory, a theoretical framework attempting to unify all forces and particles into one elegant equation, adds yet another layer. In string theory, the fundamental building blocks of the universe aren't particles, but tiny vibrating strings. These strings can exist in up to 11 dimensions, far beyond our normal perception of height, width, depth, and time. According to this view, our universe might be a three-dimensional brain floating in a higher dimensional space. Other brains, other universes, could be stacked next to ours, completely invisible, yet governed by their own unique rules of reality. This is where the concept gets even more disorienting. If these parallel realities exist, they don't have to look anything like ours. They might have different elements, different forms of life. They might not even follow time in a linear fashion. Some might have collapsed seconds after forming. Others might have evolved into realms so advanced we couldn't even recognize them as universes. But how do we define a universe in the first place? Traditionally, it's been described as everything that exists: space, time, matter, energy, and the physical laws that govern them. But if all these things exist in other frameworks, separated from us by boundaries we can't currently detect, then our traditional definition collapses. We're left with a more fluid understanding. A universe is simply a domain of consistent physical laws. And if physics allows for more than one set of rules, which it seems to, then there's no reason to assume ours is the only game in town. So how many universes are we talking about? A handful? Dozens? Thousands? Try infinite. In the many-worlds scenario, the number of universes increases every time an interaction happens at the quantum level, and quantum interactions happen constantly. Every second, the universe might be splitting into countless new versions, each branching off like the roots of a colossal, ever-growing tree. In the inflationary model, the number of bubble universes could also be infinite, each forming beyond the observable horizon, unreachable but mathematically probable. In string theory's multiverse, each configuration of vibrating strings could result in a totally different universe, potentially numbering in the hundreds of quintillions. This doesn't just stretch the mind, it smashes it. Still, a healthy skepticism lingers. Critics argue that if these other universes are unobservable, they can't be considered scientific. They say it's metaphysics dressed up in math. But proponents counter with a powerful argument. Sometimes the most profound truths are not visible directly. Black holes were once theoretical. Atoms were once invisible. Gravitational waves were only confirmed a century after they were predicted. The multiverse might just be another truth waiting for tools advanced enough to uncover it. So what exactly is the multiverse? It's not a place. It's not a destination. It's a framework. A redefinition of everything we thought was absolute: space, time, identity, cause, and effect. It's the idea that reality, as vast as it already appears, is only one shard of a much larger mirror, fractured, infinite, and uncontainable. A cosmic revelation that whispers you are not alone, not just in terms of species or planets, but in terms of your own self, replicated, altered, and scattered across realms you'll never touch, but that might be touching you. And the most unsettling part? The existence of the multiverse doesn't just change the universe. It changes you. The idea that another version of you exists right now, not metaphorically but physically and simultaneously, is no longer confined to science fiction. It's a logical extension of the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics and other models that suggest reality isn't linear, singular, or exclusive. It's plural, fractured, repeating itself with subtle or radical variation. In the many worlds interpretation, reality doesn't collapse into one outcome. Instead, every possible outcome unfolds separately, completely, and without cancellation. When you decide to take a new job or stay where you are, two separate universes could be generated. One where you walked away and one where you didn't. Both are real. Both contain a version of you. This isn't poetry. It's quantum theory applied to human existence. Now extend this idea to everything you've ever done, and everything you've ever not done. There could be infinite versions of you who made different choices, who turned left instead of right, spoke up instead of staying silent, pursued a path you only dreamt about, or avoided a disaster you couldn't. They are not abstract reflections. They are you, just not here. This realization introduces a disturbing sense of fluidity to identity. Who are you, really, if every alternative path of your life is being lived by another you? Is your personality fixed, or just one expression of infinite possibilities? These aren't just psychological questions. They're philosophical weapons aimed directly at the concept of a single, coherent self. If multiple versions of you exist, does that reduce the significance of your choices? On the surface, it might seem like it. After all, if every choice you don't make is being made by another you, what's the point of worrying about decisions? But this line of thought misses something essential. Your choices still define your conscious experience. They still shape the path you will experience. The other versions don't cancel out your story. They simply reveal how many other stories were possible. Still, the existence of alternate selves challenges our most sacred psychological constructs. Free will, for instance. In a multiverse where every possibility occurs, is free will even meaningful? If everything you could do is being done somewhere, then are your decisions truly yours? Or are you merely riding one branch of a predetermined explosion of probabilities? This is where things become less scientific and more existential. Free will traditionally assumes a linear structure of time and a singular timeline. In a multiverse, time doesn't flow the same way. Events don't collapse into finality, they fracture and proliferate. You're not walking a tightrope of fate. You're surfing an endless ocean of variations. But here's the twist. In every universe, the version of you inside it still feels as though they are making choices. That sensation remains, which suggests that consciousness is tightly bound to the experience of a singular narrative, even when that narrative is only one strand in a cosmic tapestry. In fact, consciousness may be the very reason these universes don't blend into one indistinguishable mess. Each version of you only perceives one trajectory because that is the role of awareness, to anchor one thread of experience out of an infinite web. But just because you can't perceive the others doesn't mean they aren't equally vivid, equally real, equally conscious. Now think about the structure of identity. We like to believe we're consistent, that we are who we are, always. But if versions of us exist that made different choices, lived different lives, and evolved under different conditions, then identity becomes elastic. It's no longer about fixed traits, but about context. You might be brave in one universe and fearful in another, artistic in one, analytical in another. Your personality, values, beliefs, all could shift depending on a single altered event. Does that undermine the concept of authenticity? Not necessarily. Instead, it reveals that authenticity might be environmental, emergent, and responsive. You aren't static. You are dynamic, and this multiversal view reflects that in the most extreme way imaginable. But there's another layer to consider: causality. In our traditional model, cause and effect are linear. One thing leads to another. But in a multiverse, every cause creates a fork. Every effect spreads out like the veins of a leaf, multiplying outcomes endlessly. This infinite branching means your life isn't a story being written. It's a network of overlapping stories, each equally valid, each equally real. Now consider the concept of fate. In many spiritual traditions, fate is the path you're destined to walk. But in a multiverse, fate is not a single path, it's a massive grid of intersecting lines. Perhaps fate is not about a specific destination, but about the collection of possible outcomes available to your consciousness. The idea of you fulfilling a purpose becomes more fluid. Maybe there isn't one purpose. Maybe there are billions and you're fulfilling one of them right now, while other versions are fulfilling the rest. This doesn't make life meaningless. On the contrary, it might make it more meaningful than ever. If all possibilities are real, then your experience, the one you're living now, is a rare jewel of specificity. Out of all the infinite paths, this one is yours. That gives your moment, your choices, your story, gravity. The more this idea takes root in the scientific world, the more it begins to echo ancient metaphysical traditions. Some interpretations of consciousness in Eastern philosophies, for example, align eerily well with the multiverse. The idea that the self is not fixed, that reality is layered and ever-shifting, these are not foreign concepts. Science may be catching up to insights that mystics have intuited for centuries. But one of the most unnerving implications is the idea of interaction. If there are other versions of you, could you ever become aware of them? Could you influence or be influenced by their actions? Some theories suggest that in moments of extreme emotion or decision-making, your consciousness might jump tracks. That is, align more closely with a version of reality that reflects your state of being. This is a controversial and speculative idea, but it raises tantalizing possibilities about the role of perception in determining which universe you inhabit. And then there's the psychological impact of knowing this. If you're aware that other versions of you exist, living different lives, how does that affect your mental state? For some, it may induce anxiety, the fear of missing out on a better version of life. For others, it might spark freedom, the sense that no matter what, something beautiful is being lived out somewhere. But perhaps the healthiest perspective is this: those other versions are not competitors. They are extensions. You are not fragmented. You are multifaceted, living every possibility that reality can hold, even if only one at a time. This brings us to the edge of thought, the boundary where physics ends and metaphysics begins. You are not just a person making choices. You are an observer traveling through a jungle of branching timelines, selecting experiences, weaving meaning. And even if you can never meet the other yous, knowing they exist redefines the meaning of your existence. You are not alone, not because there are people around you, but because there are you around you, an infinite mirror house of reflection, choice, and experience. Your actions still matter, not because they are unique, but because they are yours. Your story still counts, not because it is the only one, but because it is one of the infinite few you get to live. And now that you know this, the question isn't whether other versions of you exist. The real question is, which version do you want to become? Speculation without evidence is the playground of imagination. But speculation with even a thread of data? That's how revolutions in science begin. The multiverse is a seductive idea, one that stretches across the minds of physicists, philosophers, and dreamers alike. But seduction isn't science. The question now stands: can this theory, with all its infinite echoes of reality, ever be grounded in measurable, testable, observable fact? If these other universes are real, then where is the proof? And if proof is even possible, what would it look like? To answer this, we have to begin not with philosophy, but with the engine of the known universe, quantum mechanics. This field already shattered our understanding of reality a century ago, suggesting that particles don't have fixed states until they're observed. The very act of measurement causes one possibility to manifest and others to disappear, or, according to the many worlds interpretation, for all outcomes to branch off and unfold independently in different universes. But this interpretation is theoretical. Elegant, yes. Explanatory, absolutely. Yet lacking in direct evidence. The multiverse, for all its intuitive power, sits just outside the borders of empirical proof. However, physicists are trying to bring it into the realm of data, and their strategies are as fascinating as the theory itself. Start with the cosmic microwave background, the faint radiation left over from the Big Bang. This afterglow is the universe's oldest memory, and it's surprisingly uniform across the sky. But not perfectly. Small fluctuations ripple through it, and those fluctuations might be clues. Some scientists believe that collisions between our universe and others could leave detectable scars in this ancient radiation. In other words, if our universe ever bumped into another bubble in this cosmic foam, it might have left a fingerprint. A cold spot, a strange asymmetry, an anomaly that can't be explained by standard cosmology. And indeed, one such cold spot has been observed. It's an unusually large and empty region in the sky, detected by the WMAP and Planck satellites. Standard models struggle to explain it. Some researchers have proposed that it might be a sign of an interaction between our universe and another one. Not proof, but a whisper, a crack in the glass, a suggestion that something more is out there, brushing against the fabric of what we call real. Then there's inflation theory, the idea that right after the Big Bang, the universe expanded exponentially faster than the speed of light. This theory helps explain the uniformity of the cosmos and predicts the formation of bubble universes, isolated pockets of space that balloon out and become their own distinct universes. Some go further and suggest that this process never really stopped, that even now, other universes are still being born, inflating away from ours in a never-ending cosmic bloom. If inflation is correct, and much evidence already supports it, then the multiverse isn't just possible. It's likely. The challenge, however, is that these other universes might be so far away, so causally disconnected, that we can never reach or see them. They could be moving away faster than the speed of light. In that case, direct observation may be permanently out of reach. But physicists aren't giving up. Some are exploring gravitational waves as a potential tool. These ripples in spacetime were first detected in 2015, and they've already opened a new era in astronomy. If universes ever collided or interacted early in cosmic history, those events might have generated unique gravitational signatures. Future detectors, more sensitive and precise than anything we have now, could one day capture these signals, echoes from beyond the known. Another area of interest is string theory and the concept of the landscape. String theory proposes that all particles are tiny vibrating strings, and that different modes of vibration produce different particles. But for this theory to work, it requires extra dimensions, sometimes as many as 10 or 11. And when combined with certain versions of inflation theory, string theory predicts a vast landscape of possible universes, each with different physical laws. If this landscape is real, then the multiverse becomes not just a side effect, but a requirement. Our universe would simply be one valley in a nearly infinite terrain of possibilities. The issue, once again, is observational access. These dimensions and universes could exist beyond what our tools can detect. For now. Yet there's another avenue being explored, one not through physical detection, but through mathematics and logic. Some physicists argue that if our theories predict the multiverse, and those theories are otherwise successful, then the multiverse must be taken seriously. It's a kind of indirect validation. If your map keeps predicting terrain that proves real, even if one part is still uncharted, do you throw the map away, or do you trust the part you haven't reached yet? This approach has precedent. Black holes were once theoretical monsters, mathematical artifacts that nobody believed could exist. And yet, through decades of indirect evidence, they became accepted. Eventually, we even photographed one. The multiverse may follow a similar path. Theory, ridicule, acceptance, and perhaps one day confirmation. But there's also a darker possibility. Some scientists believe the multiverse is fundamentally unfalsifiable. That is, it can't be tested or disproven. And if a theory can't be disproven, then by the strictest definitions of science, it doesn't qualify as science at all. It becomes metaphysics. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it exists in a gray zone, beyond the grasp of current method. Still, others argue that science must expand to meet reality, not the other way around. If reality is more complex, more layered, and more hidden than our tools can reach, then perhaps science itself must evolve, to include new ways of testing, new forms of inference, new conceptual models that capture truth without needing to smash particles or point telescopes. In the meantime, thought experiments remain powerful tools. Simulations and models are being run by physicists that show how universes could spawn from quantum fluctuations, how they might expand and interact, and how a multiverse could lead to the specific physical constants we observe. These models are elegant, consistent, and predictive. They don't prove the multiverse, but they make it harder to dismiss. And then there's quantum computing, a real-world technology that may indirectly support multiverse ideas. Some interpretations suggest that quantum computers work by simultaneously processing information across multiple parallel worlds. It's a controversial view, but one that's gaining traction. If quantum computing continues to succeed where classical computing fails, it may offer indirect evidence that the multiverse isn't just a mental construct, but a functional part of physical law. For now, though, we live in a liminal state, perched between data and theory, between certainty and wonder. The multiverse is not yet proven, but neither is it fantasy. It occupies a strange and thrilling middle ground, where science touches the edges of the unknowable. And that's where the true excitement lies. Not in the certainty, but in the possibility. Not in the answers, but in the fact that the question exists at all. Are we alone in the cosmos? That question used to refer to alien life. Now it might refer to ourselves, to other versions of us, living silently, unknowingly, just out of reach. We may not have touched them, but we've conceived of them. And in the history of science, conception is always the first step toward revelation. The search continues not just in labs and satellites, but in the minds of those who refuse to accept that this is all there is. Because the moment we asked whether there was more, the universe may have already whispered back. Yes, a theory doesn't have to be proven to rearrange the architecture of thought. The moment the multiverse theory entered scientific discourse, it didn't just challenge cosmology. It confronted meaning, selfhood, morality, and even identity. It raised questions that no telescope can answer, yet no human can ignore. Because if the multiverse exists, then so does a version of you that made every choice you didn't. Somewhere, there is a you who turned left instead of right, who said yes instead of no, who succeeded wildly, or failed miserably, or chose silence over words or risk over comfort. All those lives, branching out endlessly, each one just as real, just as valid. All of them you. This idea shakes the foundations of how we define ourselves. In a single universe model, your identity is cohesive, the product of your choices, your memories, your experiences. But if reality is splintered into countless branches, then identity becomes fluid. Are you this version only? Or are you the composite of all possible yous? The notion that consciousness might be mirrored and echoed across infinite versions raises profound questions about what it even means to be you. It also casts a shadow over the concept of free will. If every decision you make exists in some branch of the multiverse, then did you ever really choose it all? If every possibility is played out in some universe, are we simply passengers in an endless flow of branching fates, each one scripted by the unfolding laws of quantum mechanics? Some thinkers argue that this doesn't nullify free will, it redefines it. In the multiverse, your choices still matter because they determine which version of you experience. All the other yous exist, but you're only aware of the thread you're walking. Free will, in this view, isn't about collapsing possibilities. It's about navigating which path you consciously ride. Like choosing a wave to surf, even if the ocean is filled with infinite ones. Others go further and ask if consciousness itself is also multiversal. Could your awareness flicker across different versions, syncing to one timeline at a time? Could dreams, intuitions, or even déjà vu be echoes of your other selves bleeding through? Science hasn't caught up to such possibilities yet, but the questions are being asked. And often, that's how revolutions begin. The multiverse also reawakens the ancient tension between meaning and randomness. In a single universe cosmos, events feel weighty because they are singular. But in an infinite multiverse, every tragedy is also avoided, every loss undone, every death reversed, somewhere. Does that cheapen the meaning of this reality or deepen it? One interpretation suggests that meaning becomes more personal in a multiverse, not less. If you are just one of countless versions, then this version becomes sacred, because it is yours. This is the version where you're watching this video, the version where your thoughts are shaped by this exact sequence of events. No matter how many other yous exist, they don't negate you. They frame you. They highlight how astonishing it is that this thread of consciousness exists at all. Then there's the existential ripple effect. For centuries, humanity has tried to answer one question in 1,000 forms. Why are we here? Religions, philosophies, mythologies all orbit this central mystery. The multiverse doesn't answer it, but it rewrites the grammar of the question. Because if infinite universes exist, then maybe there is no why. Maybe we're not here because of destiny or design, but because every possible configuration of atoms, life, and mind exists somewhere. Ours just happens to be this one. That thought is terrifying to some, liberating to others. It removes the illusion of cosmic favoritism, but it also implies that existence is far more abundant and far less lonely than we ever imagined. And what of purpose? In an infinite multiverse, is anything truly significant? Do our actions matter? Is heroism still noble if in another reality, you're the villain? Surprisingly, many philosophers argue that the presence of infinite versions actually amplifies the weight of ethical choice. Because even if every option exists somewhere, you are still responsible for this choice in this moment. You may not control the other versions of yourself, but you control the path of the one you're living. The reality you're shaping. That's not disempowering. It's profound. It means your choices are the axis around which your universe spins, regardless of how many other axes exist. The multiverse also touches one of the most sacred questions in philosophy, the nature of reality itself. If countless realities are unfolding in parallel, then reality is no longer singular. It's layered. It's relational. What's real for you might not be real for another version of you. But does that make it illusion, or simply one lens among many? Some thinkers argue that truth becomes multidimensional in a multiverse, not less true, but more complex. Reality isn't a single thread, but a tapestry. Your strand is no less real because others exist. It's part of a much larger weave, one so vast it may never be fully seen, even by the gods of imagination. This vastness can also ignite a quiet kind of awe, the kind that silences arguments and awakens humility. In a multiverse, human knowledge is always incomplete. Even the most advanced minds become children in a cosmic library whose shelves never end. That doesn't invalidate knowledge. It sanctifies it. It means that every discovery is a window into something infinitely deeper. That the closer we get to truth, the more we realize we're still only touching the surface of the infinite. Yet not everyone finds comfort in this. The multiverse threatens deeply rooted human instincts, our craving for uniqueness, our need for linear meaning, our desire for permanence. In a world where everything happens somewhere, where versions of us live lives we've never known, the ego can feel displaced, small, replaceable. But that's a trick of perception. Because in the same breath, the multiverse reveals something staggering. You exist. In a cosmos where infinite configurations are possible, your configuration is happening right now. And that is miraculous. The fact that your consciousness is experiencing this sliver of reality, this fleeting timeline, this precise constellation of thought, is statistically unfathomable. And yet, here you are. That realization reframes existence not as random, but as rare. Not meaningless, but incomprehensibly significant. It suggests that even in a sea of infinities, the present moment retains its sacred power, because you are the only one living this version of it. There is also a quiet revolution happening in how we define death. In a multiverse, death isn't the end. It's a transition. Somewhere, another you survives. another you thrives. The continuity of self might not be local but global, distributed across realities, like a wave pattern echoing through dimensions. Again, this isn't proven, but it's a possibility that reshapes grief, courage, and the mystery of what it means to continue. And then we arrive at the final implication, one so radical it eludes language. If the multiverse is real, and all versions of reality are unfolding simultaneously, then the boundary between what is and what could be is dissolving. Reality isn't fixed. It's conditional, responsive, unfolding not from a script, but from interaction. And consciousness might be not just a witness to this, but a participant. Some theories even suggest that awareness itself could be the mechanism by which timelines are selected. That consciousness is not merely in the universe. It's part of the engine that chooses which of the infinite possibilities becomes the lived one. If true, that would mean consciousness is not passive. It's cosmically creative. You are not just floating in the multiverse. You are sculpting your thread through it, not with magic, with choice, with attention, with intention. You may not control the infinite, but you might influence the version of infinity you experience. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful implication of all. You've just traveled through a landscape that reshapes how we think about science, selfhood, and the very fabric of existence. From the strange elegance of quantum mechanics to the wild horizons of infinite branching realities, the multiverse theory doesn't merely expand the universe. It redefines it. We began by asking a question that sounds deceptively simple. Are you living in the wrong universe? But this wasn't a question about dissatisfaction or regret. It was a challenge to examine the deeper structure of what you call reality. Because if there is more than one universe, more than one you, then the story you live isn't the only version. It's one thread in a vast and ever-expanding web of possibility. This isn't just abstract philosophy. The implications cut into every layer of understanding. Science tells us that the multiverse is no longer science fiction. Quantum mechanics already shattered the illusion of a fixed world. With every observation, particles respond differently. Superposition, entanglement, decoherence, these aren't fringe ideas anymore. They're the quantum grammar beneath reality itself. And some of the most compelling interpretations of these behaviors suggest that countless universes could be spawning in the background, each holding a different version of events, of matter, of you. We explored these interpretations. From the many worlds interpretation that posits every quantum decision creates a split reality, to the cosmic inflation theory that suggests pocket universes endlessly bubbling into being across an infinite expanse, science is increasingly hinting that our universe might be just one tile in a much larger mosaic. But the real impact of this idea goes beyond telescopes and equations. It reaches inward, because once you consider that infinite versions of yourself might exist, making different choices, facing different consequences, exploring different outcomes, the boundaries of identity begin to shift. Who are you really? Are you only this one configuration? Or are you the sum of all possibilities? This leads to a paradox that feels like a mirror with no end. The more versions of you there are, the more precious this one becomes. Not less, because you are here now. Out of all the infinite yous, this is the thread you're conscious of. This is the reality you're experiencing. That's not just rare. It's sacred. And perhaps that's what the multiverse reveals at its deepest level. Not chaos, but a kind of hidden coherence. Not confusion, but depth. Because even if infinite realities exist, your awareness still finds its way to this one. And that means something. It means that meaning is not lost in the vastness. It's magnified. It means that the decisions you make matter, not because they erase all other possibilities, but because they determine the version of you that you get to know. The multiverse doesn't make your life meaningless. It makes it breathtakingly unique. But let's push further. In every major branch of thought, science, philosophy, even spirituality, we find the idea that reality is not what it seems. That behind the visible world, something stranger is happening. Whether it's parallel universes, holographic realities, simulations, or consciousness-based models of physics. One thing is becoming clear. We are living in an age where the border between the known and the unknown is dissolving. And this border is not out there in some distant galaxy. It's right here in your own perception. The multiverse forces a reevaluation of what it means to know something, to be someone, to live a life. Because if all realities are possible, and some theories suggest they are, then your attention becomes the compass. Your choices become the path. Your consciousness becomes the bridge between the possible and the real. This isn't metaphysical fluff. It's a growing hypothesis among some quantum theorists that awareness might play a fundamental role in how reality is selected from among infinite options. That consciousness isn't just observing the universe, it might be co-creating it. And if that's true, then the multiverse isn't just a scientific idea. It's a personal invitation. An invitation to step into your role, not as a passive observer of cosmic randomness, but as an active participant in how your story unfolds. So the question isn't just whether you're in the right universe. The deeper question is this: which universe are you choosing to align with right now? That decision, subtle, quiet, often invisible, may shape the entire trajectory of your life. Because even if 1,000 other versions of you exist, none of them cancel out this one. This is the version that wakes up with your eyes, thinks your thoughts, faces your fears, and moves forward with your courage. So what do you do with that? You explore. Not just the science, though there's endless wonder in that, but also the implications. The questions that science hints at, but doesn't fully answer. Are we all connected across realities? Can consciousness transcend the local brain and interface with other timelines? Is death a boundary or a threshold? What role does intention play in shaping the version of reality we perceive? These are questions that haven't been resolved, not by physicists, not by philosophers, not by mystics. And yet they are questions that grip the imagination of anyone willing to truly look at the night sky and say, this might not be all there is. If this has awakened curiosity in you, follow it. You don't need to become a quantum physicist, but you can read what they're discovering. Pick up works by thinkers like Hugh Everett, David Deutsch, or Sean Carroll. Explore the overlaps between science and consciousness. Investigate simulation theory, string theory, holographic models of reality. Watch lectures. Read papers. Engage your mind like it's not just a sponge for data, but a portal to possibility. The multiverse isn't waiting to be discovered. It's already here, in theory, in math, maybe even in the shadows of our own thoughts. Whether we ever prove it fully is beside the point. Its real power lies in how it expands our frame of thinking. No longer are we trapped in a single cosmic accident, forced to squeeze meaning out of a cold, mechanical void. No, now we are explorers in a landscape of infinite potential, where every thought, every action, every observation may be shaping the thread we walk. And that's where the journey really begins. Because when the known dissolves into the infinite, wonder returns. And with it comes a kind of freedom, not the freedom to escape life, but the freedom to engage with it more deeply. You are not stuck. You are not limited. You are not confined to the version of reality you've inherited. You are standing at the edge of possibility, every moment, every breath, every thought. So the next time you hesitate to take a step forward, ask yourself, what would the best version of me do right now? And then, for that instant, let this universe become the one where you did. After all, if infinite realities are waiting, why not make this the one worth remembering?